Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Sunday night video. This week I am covering the very strange story of Stephen McLawrence and the attempted murder of Mary McLawrence and Isabella Chapman, which took place in Gateshead in 1920. I hope you will find it interesting. Stephen McLawrence was born in Gateshead in around 1875 to parents John and Elizabeth, and was one of at least 9 children. There could possibly have been a few more children, but the spelling of the name makes it quite difficult to know if some of them truly are part of his family. Stephen married Mary in around 1893, and the couple had around 9 children together. He had joined the Durham Light Infantry in 1915 during World War I, when he was around 41 years old, and according to his records he spent some of his time based at Wallsend. He left in 1917 when it was said that he was unfit for service. However, his health condition at the time was unknown, and he was described as a labourer, although his place of work in 1920 is unknown. Mary Ann Brown, one of the victims, was born in Gateshead in around 1876 to parents John and Mary, and was one of at least 10 children. As said previously, she had married Stephen McLawrence in around 1893. And the couple in recent years had not had a happy marriage, and Mary had left Stephen on 2 different occasions, and the most recent time had been a few months before the attack took place. Isabella Chapman, the other victim, was the younger sister of Mary McLawrence. She was married to John Chapman, and the couple lived in Gateshead, close to the home of her sister. Before we go any further, can I just say that if you do enjoy this video, then please give it a thumbs up. And if you are new here or haven't already done so, then do please consider subscribing to the channel to help support the content we create. It really is appreciated. And it is completely free to subscribe. It doesn't cost any money at all, but it really does help to support the channel. And as always, I just want to add that I do record these stories live, so I do sometimes make mistakes, which I always try to rectify, so I hope this does not spoil your enjoyment of the video. So back now to our story. Stephen and Mary had separated in June of 1919 and had been living apart from that time onwards. Late in August of 1920, Stephen went to see his wife at her home in Gateshead and told her that he thought she should return to living with him. However, Mary said she did not wish to, and Stephen was very angry about this and said he would find her one night and do for her. It's not clear how seriously Mary took these threats, but on the night of September the 11th, she had been out with her sister Isabella, and on their way home in Oakwell Gate, Stephen suddenly appeared in front of them, and without warning, he began to attack his wife with a pocket knife. Isabella immediately went to her sister's aid, and Stephen then attacked her as well. The sound of the 2 women screaming attracted the attention of passers-by, and Stephen ran away. The police and a doctor were sent for. After information was given to PC Matthews, he went in search of Stephen and arrested him on a charge of cutting and wounding the 2 women. And it was said at the time that he did not appear to be too concerned about these charges. Both Mary and Isabella were sent to the infirmary and were both said to be in a serious condition, although not life-threatening. And the infirmary in question was most likely to have been the Royal Victoria Infirmary in Newcastle. Stephen would appear before the magistrates in October of 1920, and it was stated that Mary at the time was still too ill to attend that hearing. However, her sister Isabella was present. Isabella said that on September the 11th, 1920, she had been out with her husband at around 8:30 p.m. When heading into Oakwell Gate, she said she had met her sister and they had stood talking for a few minutes. Then all 3 of them went on to the Crystal Palace Hotel in Gateshead, where they had a couple of drinks, and then left there to return home at around 9:40 p.m. She said as they got close to Mary's home in Oakwell Gate, Stephen suddenly appeared from under the railway bridge. He tapped Mary on the shoulder and said something offensive to his wife. Isabella said she had continued walking while Mary had stopped to talk to Stephen, but as she turned to look back, she saw Stephen raise his arm as if about to strike Mary, and she shouted at him not to do it. She said she was worried because Mary had recently been unwell. However, she said Stephen took no notice of her, and she saw him strike out at Mary 4 or 5 times, and she believed he had used a knife each time he had struck Mary. She ran over to where Mary was, and she said she attempted to protect her, and Stephen then stabbed her 3 times with the knife. She screamed, and Mary did too, and this attracted the attention of other people on the street, and Stephen ran away. She said someone then sent for the police and a doctor. She said she herself had been confined to bed for 14 days after the attack, as she had lost a considerable amount of blood and had been very unwell. When she was asked, she denied that her injuries had been the result of accidentally getting in the way of the knife, repeating that Stephen had deliberately stabbed her. Catherine Tennyson of Gateshead said Isabella and Mary were her sisters. She said she had seen part of the attack take place. She had not seen Stephen stab Mary, but she had seen him stab Isabella, and she said it was not an accident. John Chapman of Gateshead said Isabella was his wife. He said he had been with the women on the night the attack took place. However, he said he had been not standing close by with them, and the area where they were was quite dark, so he could not truly see what had happened, and he also said that he did not see the knife being used. Dr. Hetherington stated that both women had been taken to the police station after the attack, and it was here that he had been called to attend to them both. He stated that Isabella had been in a state of collapse when he saw her, as she had lost a lot of blood, and the wound near her shoulder had just missed one of the main arteries. Had it been a couple of inches the other way, she would have died within minutes. The other wounds, he said, were more superficial. As Mary was not present in court, he did not discuss her injuries. P.C. Matthews said he had been called to the scene on September the 11th and found both women bleeding badly. They had been taken to the police station and the doctor sent for. He had been told Stephen McLawrence had been responsible for the attack, and he had gone to look for him. When he arrested him for cutting and wounding both women, he had stated, "I don't care what becomes of me." The charge was later changed to attempted murder, and Stephen stated then that he was not guilty. The defence then stated that there was not enough evidence to send Stephen to trial on the charge of attempted murder. He said it must be noted that Mary McLawrence had no wounds to her body that were in a dangerous place. All were confined to her arms. Isabella also did not have any serious wounds, and he said that surely if a person intended to commit murder, they would not have stabbed the victim in the arms. It was then pointed out by the prosecution that Stephen had previously made threats towards his wife, saying that he would do her in, and also that the doctor had stated the wound to Isabella's shoulder was just inches short of being fatal. The prosecution said this was clearly attempted murder. This was all the evidence given, and the magistrates, after a brief discussion, then committed Stephen McLawrence to trial on a charge of attempted murder. The trial took place in Durham in November of 1920, and the judge presiding over the trial was not named. Stephen pleaded not guilty to the charge. As is often the case, especially where only a few witnesses are called, most of the evidence at the trial is the same as that given at the inquest, so I will only include any new evidence. Mary McLawrence was now well enough to attend, and although she did not give any details of her injuries or discuss the attack, she stated that she had had a very unhappy married life with Stephen, stating that he had treated her very cruelly on many occasions, and she had no wish to continue living with him. She said she felt he had attacked her because she had refused to live with him again. Dr. Hetherington stated that Mary had 3 wounds, 2 on the right arm and 1 on the left. He said all had been quite serious and a lot of blood had been lost. He said the nerves and tendons in her wrist had been cut. And he also repeated that Isabella's shoulder wound had been a few inches short of causing her death within 2 minutes. Stephen gave evidence on his own behalf. He stated that he had no intentions of murdering his wife and his sister. He said he had been standing in Oakwell Gate on the night in question, minding his own business. He had been cutting tobacco with the knife in question. He said suddenly both women came up to him and began to attack him. He said he defended himself and completely forgot that he had a knife in his hand at the time. He said he lost his mind and struck out at them, not knowing what he was doing. He then said it was a strange family that he had married into. He knew of others married to their brothers and sisters, and they all had the same awful life that he had. When questioned, he stated that his wife had never previously attacked him, and he then described his wife and her sister as 2 she-cubs. No further evidence was given, and the judge, in summing up, stated that it was for the jury to decide whether or not this had been an accident, as Stephen suggested, or deliberate, as both Mary and Isabella had stated. The jury retired for only a short time before returning a verdict of guilty of wounding with intent against Stephen McLawrence. The judge then sentenced Stephen to 5 years penal servitude. He was sent to Dartmoor prison and was released in August of 1924. It was stated that he was going to work as a blacksmith. It's not clear if he ever returned to Gateshead after this, and I did not find any further details for him after 1924. This was another very strange case. Clearly both Stephen and Mary blamed each other for their problems. Mary accusing Stephen of being cruel to her for most of their married life, and Stephen accusing Mary of treating him badly as well. Perhaps it is possible that they were truly as bad as each other. And the actual attack that took place is almost impossible to work out. The sisters and Isabella's husband all suggest that Stephen attacked without warning, but Stephen states that the sisters attacked him without warning, and as there doesn't appear to be any impartial witnesses, there is no way to know for sure who was telling the truth. Were the jury correct in finding Stephen guilty of attempted murder? Well, I have to admit, well actually they didn't, it was wounding with intent, but that is the same thing. But I have to admit I am not really sure that they were correct. However, I think based on Stephen's evidence that he simply forgot he had a knife in his hand, they probably did find that a little too hard to believe and went more with the family evidence than his. And also the fact that the doctor stated Isabella would have died had the wound been a couple of inches closer to the main artery. So I guess they did not have a lot of choice in their verdict. But what do you think? Do you think Stephen attacked his wife first? After all, he was said to have made threats against her. Or do you think the sisters attacked him first? Do you think he truly did forget he had a knife in his hand? Or do you, like the jury, find that hard to believe? And finally, do you think the sisters lied about the events on the night of the attack in the hope that Stephen would be sent to prison away from his wife? Do please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I do hope that you have found this very strange case interesting, and I do thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again very soon.